If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here. Let's go now. A little life out here. Let's have a little life out here.
Packer fans, what it do? Welcome to another week, another new episode of Ahead of the Pack. I'm your host, Camille Davis, joined by Monty Moore and Dan Cotning. As usual, we are back after a week off. Your girl has been sick. I'm still kind of battling through some of it, so excuse me for that. But we are back. We had to come back, of course, for Bears, Packers, and after last week's game, there are some things to discuss this week. So with our opening drive, we're going to kick off with our biggest storylines heading into this week's game. And I'll just start with the obvious, the elephant in the room here. How does the defense look without Micah Parsons is what I'm looking for here, because when you think about how the Packers defense is constructed, right? The pass rush is such a vital aspect of it. Of even just how Jeff Hafley ideally likes to run his defense, of like being able to generate that pressure with the front four, being able to do all these other interesting things with everyone else on the field, dropping guys in the coverage, mixing things up, and losing Micah Parsons, who is the Packers' best pass rusher. It affects things. And it makes me wonder, like, are we going to see Hafley dig into a bag similar to some defensive schemes we saw last year, where there's more simulated pressure, where he actually does blitz a bit more often than we have seen so far this season? But then again, it's like, if you do blitz more often, you're putting more responsibility and more on the shoulders of your cornerbacks. And both CV and Keyshawn, they had bad days in Denver. So it's like they've had I would say overall the season has been solid for the cornerbacks, but when they have bad games, they have been really, really bad games. So I'm really curious to see what that balance looks like, especially thinking about 2 weeks ago, where in the second half, you saw the Bears offense start to get some momentum, start figuring things out, being able to lean on that run game and go forward with that. Like, I'm just really curious to see what this defense looks like without Micah Parsons against a divisional rival in Chicago at that.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about him being the pass rush, and that's kind of been what it is. I mean, I think he has something like 50 more pressures than the next person on the Packers, which I think is Rashawn Gary. Like, but you made a great point, which was, last year, the way Hafley likes to play his defense, he didn't get to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that led them to acquiring Micah Parsons. But he wants to play that 4-down lineman and then you cover. That wasn't working. So last year, what did he do? He started sending Edgerrin Cooper, who was very good as a blitzing linebacker, by the way. This year, we've kind of seen him throw some wrinkles, right? We've had Isaiah McDuffie blitzed in this last game. He has sent McKinney a couple times. Like, that kind of stuff he's going to need to keep doing. Mm-hmm. But I tweeted this out yesterday. The Packers didn't get Micah Parsons till the end of August, right? So that means they had gone through mini camp, rookie mini camp, training camp, preseason, and installed and planned for an offense or a defense, that didn't have an alien pass rusher. Then they got one, and it was like, oh, well, now this defense is going to be extremely good. So, like, it's not like they're, caught with their pants down, so to speak, of what are we supposed to do? And his press conference today, actually, I don't know if you guys heard it.
Maybe you want to run through the wall.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like, talking about, nobody better come in here with their heads down. Like, we still really believe, and we'll get into this as we go through the game. But yeah, all that to say, I think that's going to be where the microscope is on this game, is to see how their defense responds.
Yeah, I think sorry to be, Debbie Downer. Wah, wah.
Danny Downer.
Everyone is saying all the right things. They've been saying all the right things since Sunday. You know, Rashawn talking about, like, just watch what the front does. Watch what the front can do.
Don't worry, we're watching.
Definitely watching.
Monty, I mean, your point I think is valid, that, they went into most of training camp and probably expecting to go into the season with pretty much the defense exactly like how it is, minus Kenny Clark. right?
Yeah.
And so everything else, playing out, Devontae Wyatt, still gets injured, whatever. Like you'd still find yourself in a similar spot, right? I think the difference is that we've now seen what this defense is with Micah Parsons, and this is going to be the first time we see what their defense would have been without him.
Mm-hmm.
And he is on the field. He covers up a lot. We talked about the corners having up and down games every single week. There's a lot of times where the defense, specifically the secondary, gets bailed out because the quarterback cannot make a good throw because the pass rush is getting there. And so, there's I just wonder what that gulf is going to be now that the players kind of have to play up a level, and that margin of error shrinks for guys like Nate Hobbs, like Carrington Valentine, who are putting themselves in situations to make plays and aren't executing.
Mm-hmm.
Those now hurt you even more than when they have been. Like the Carrington Valentine missed interception that ended up being the long run down the side on Sunday. Those are the types of things where that probably happens a lot more without Micah Parsons on the field throughout the whole rest of the season. He might be making those plays more. That margin of error shrinks, and you now have to elevate your game. Can those guys do that?
I think that's a fair question. Like, that's fair. I don't think anything that you said is Danny Downer. Like, it's all a real question, because even with Micah Parsons, we've seen flaws in the defense where it's not as if they execute perfectly every single time. And this is against an opponent who, the last time we saw each other, it came down to the last play where the Bears could have tied it up, but Keyshawn Nixon decided to drop and abandon his coverage after seeing what Evan Williams was doing and made a play on the ball. So, like, they got to be sound, because even though they don't have Micah Parsons, Evan Williams is still day to day. Like, he's said all the things about, I'm going to do everything I can to play, but if he can't play or if he's hampered, we know what a half a second difference in your reaction time can do. I mean, that Carrington Valentine interception attempt was an example of like what a half a second off can look like. So I don't think anything you said was like downer. I think it's real to consider of like, how is this really going to affect things for this team? Because what you don't want is guys overextending themselves, and now they're playing outside of themselves because they think they have to do so much more, when the reality is you just got to be sound in what the game plan is and just do your job.
Yeah.
So all right, Monty, what do you have for us this week? What's your opening drive, your biggest storyline heading into the Bears-Packers 2?
So for me, it's honestly the injury report for both teams. This is if the Packers win this game and win one more, they're going to be the 2 seed. That's pretty much where they're going to be locked into. If they can, this will put them on the inside track to win the division, and then one more should get them the 2 seed. So you're coming off of, arguably the most devastating regular season loss you've had in a long time because of the injury report. But as we're recording this Thursday evening, it sounds like Watson will play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big boon to your offense. Zack Tom, Evan Williams, both of those guys are quote unquote day to day. I would say it seems less optimistic at this point. But then on the Bears side, Luther Burden and Rome Odunze didn't practice for the second straight day. Like, DeAndre Swift popped up on the injury report with a groin. Like, for such a huge game, both of these teams are potentially down a good amount of their best players. So this is, really the matchup here, I think more than anything, is coaching, right? Which of these coaches can navigate these huge injuries the best? The Bears defense hasn't been great all year. So like, it sucks that you don't have Zack Tom, but like, their pass rush isn't fantastic. I think you feel decent about Darren Kennard, like, being in there at right tackle. But just overall, it's just going to be the guys that are potentially missing this game are going to change what these coaches like to do so much. It's going to be which one can overcome. And this is a massive spot. Like,
Yeah,
I know I've said this last few shows because it's been the case, but like, this is another playoff game for the Packers. Like, for what they want to do, if they want to win the division and they want to be the number 2 seed and host the playoff game, they have to. Matt and Jeff Havley both have to go in there and say, I need to get my absolute best game plan because this is the most important game left on the schedule.
yeah, that's very fair. And one thing with the injuries that after Denver, there was talk of like, hey, some of these injuries aren't as bad as we thought. Like some guys are week to week, and it's like, that is outstanding. And then you look at the calendar and you're like, oh, there's only 3 more weeks left in the regular season. Like,
Yeah, there's only 3 of those weeks left.
it could be a problem. Could be a problem.
Yeah, Monty, you bring up. I'd like to kind of pose this hypothetical question to you guys. So you mentioned you win this week, you win one more, you're pretty much locked into the 2 seed, and it kind of feels also like whoever wins Bears Lions in week 18
Gets the 7.
will probably get the 7 seed. Would you sacrifice losing to the Bears this week if it means a better chance of beating them in the playoffs? Because what I'm asking about is you can't beat it. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season,
which is not true, by the way. If you look at the statistics,
I know, but like, would you feel kind of like, okay, like we gave, everyone kind of, gave
traded
blows, and you go into week, go into a wild card against the Bears and say like, all right, like this is the rubber match. We're all even Steven, and now I feel better about this game.
Well, I want a home playoff game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Packers have made the playoffs the last 2 years. They've gotten that seed, the last seed. They wouldn't have made the playoffs if they didn't move to that format, right? Like, it's Jordan Love's 3rd year. A lot of this team has been they've gotten some really good experience, even though they're very young. Like, they need to play a playoff game at Lambeau. And a part of the other reason I say that is because I think this team is good enough, again, assuming some of these injuries are truly not long-term, to still maybe like get to an NFC Championship game, and from there anything can happen. But with the way the injuries are, I don't know if I think they could win like 3 road games against good playoff teams.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's fair. And I think for me, we're talk about that when we get to the predictions part of the episode, but with all that's against the Packers, with the devastating injury to Micah Parsons and everything like that, and also the news coming out that, the Bears might be, they're exploring their options and other, like all this other stuff. I you're right about it. It is tough to beat a team 3 times in the same year, but it just will feel so good if the Packers pick up this win in Chicago after all of this. It's like, even with the injuries, Bears still suck. Will be beautiful to say if we can get there.
You're making a great point, because you guys remember, this was just 2 weeks ago, how they were like, this is it. This is finally when we're going to get over the hump against the Packers. Like, they are, we're the better team. We're having a great season. Packers shut that down. They win. Now, Packers lose Micah Parsons. We're coming to Soldier Field. They're really feeling themselves. Like, they really, really want this one. I think it's even a bigger heartbreak for the Packers to do this. So, yeah, I wouldn't sacrifice that potential feeling.
And to that point, on Technical Foul this week, one of my co-hosts, he is a Bears fan. And he said this is a must-win game for Chicago. He said we cannot go into the playoffs with the monkey on our back, that we cannot beat this team, that we have to beat Green Bay this week. It's a must-win in my book. And I was like, okay, I feel it. Okay, I feel it. So that's how I would answer it. Dan, I want to hear what you would say, and then also what your opening drive is for the week. I am the show's Debbie Downer, and I'm also the show's biggest coward. I hate the idea of potentially losing the first Jordan Love home playoff game to the Bears. So if it means sacrificing
this first game without Micah Parsons to go into Soldier Field in Wild Card Weekend, and then their playoff dreams at Soldier Field, I might take that.
Okay, so you're basing the answer on
Fear.
You would
cowardice.
You'd rather win it in Soldier Field in the playoffs.
I live my life by, if the Packers cannot win the Super Bowl, do everything humanly and possibly inhumanly to make sure that no one else in the NFC North wins the Super Bowl that year.
But see, one of these other teams is getting in though, between the Bears and the Lions.
Right.
So
it feels that way.
Them this weekend, you're doing your part to keep the Bears out instead of keeping.
But then
them.
you get the line. But then you're going to face the Lions.
But hey, listen, what if the Steelers beat the Lions? Like, there's so many different ways this could go. Where maybe
I'm done relying on Aaron Rodgers to help me at this point.
You know what? I understand it. What I was relying on Aaron Rodgers for was go to Chicago and beat the Bears. And when he broke his wrist the week before, I was just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. But no. Dan, what's your opening drive for the week?
my opening drive, it's sort of similar to Monty's. I think Monty focused a lot on like the actual coach, like game plan, like who's going to game plan around these injuries, who's going to do that the best. I think mine is more, how does Matt LaFleur rally this team, right? Because like I said, everyone said all the right things. Matt LaFleur in his entire career has always said the right things. It feels like no matter, how many times his teams go out and lay an egg in prime time or go to the West Coast and just get absolutely, mollywopped by whoever. Like, no matter the like brain scratching like result that happens, Matt LaFleur says all the right things. Like, oh, we got to do this and we got to, whatever. This is the biggest challenge Matt LaFleur has faced, I feel like, definitely within the Jordan Love era.
Yeah,
maybe his career at Green Bay. I think maybe you could argue maybe like the David Bakhtiari injury right before the playoffs could be
the 2021 Cardinals game.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was probably his
that's a good
magnum opus in terms of what he was able to make out of what he had.
Right. So I think, how does this team come out and respond? Because we said the Bears licking their chops for this game. They wanted their shot back at the Packers, and now they get it without Micah Parsons. They get it at home, in what is essentially a playoff game, like we said.
Prime time.
What does Matt LaFleur's team come out and look like? What is the energy like? What does the execution look like? Right. So that's what I want to see from this team, is how do they come out and treat this game?
I think that's fair. I mean, which makes me think like which team's going to punch first and which team is going to be able to sustain that and keep punching back. Like, I think it's going to be a really close game, as we'll get to in predictions. But first, connections. Now, Dan, normally we have connections about this team and, the opponent, but we just saw this team 2 weeks ago.
We missed one though.
Like, are there any new connections between the Packers and the Bears?
Yeah. Okay. I want to open the floor to Monty here, because I forget exactly the details. Who's doing what to whose sister?
Why'd you have to say that?
So, yeah, we didn't mention last time. LVN is dating Cole Kmet's sister.
There it is.
That's probably the most direct connection.
Yeah, it doesn't get much more direct than that.
Yeah, it's very direct.
So I went a little bit different and focused on connections between the teams based on the state: Wisconsin, Illinois, Chicago, Green Bay, very close. Camille, specifically Milwaukee and Chicago. There's a lot of crossover right there. So three players, Jaden Reed, Lucas Van Ness, and Xavier McKinney, all played their high school football in and around Chicago. I think Xavier McKinney was actually more west.
Yeah, I think so.
West of the state.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed played in Chicago, or Lucas Van Ness played in Naperville, which is, very, very close to
Chicago suburb.
The Chicago, the actual Chicago city. And then Nate Hobbs is a Fighting Illini alum.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot he went to U of I, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more connection that's not really a connection. My grandfather is Chicago through and through. He's a huge Bears fan. And
So is my uncle.
After the last game, when I called him back, he said, I don't really want to talk on the phone anymore. So we'll see if Grandpa wants to talk on the phone this week after the game.
He said blocked.
Yeah. He called me first. So that's the thing. Like, I was minding my business before the game. And Grandpa called me, like, you ready for your team to get stumped out? And I was like, oh, Grandpa, I didn't expect this energy. You brought it so quickly to the doorstep. But all right, let's get into some bets. So this is where we kind of throw out some bets you might find on the sports book or you might not. Something kind of interesting. Dan, what's your bet for the week?
Mine is we're almost immediately going to get handshake talk.
Yeah.
They're going to make so much out of what happened in that handshake. I think really the only people that care about it are anybody national, because it's a fun story to bring up and add to the rivalry. Yeah. Everyone in Chicago apparently thought it was disrespectful. Neither of the head coaches thought it was, but especially because this is Fox, we're going to get like 15 minutes in the pregame, and then probably a good 5-minute segment, and we'll have Tom Brady break down, his top 5 handshakes or whatever he's got going on for him there.
I could see that. That's going to be a big talking point, just period. So I like that one. I definitely think that's going to be overdone probably in this game. Monty, what's your bet for the week?
All right. So we know that Christian Watson, again, it looks like he's going to play, but he is a little banged up. He said this is the time of year where you play through stuff. So he's certainly not going to be feeling 100%. Romeo Doubs he kind of had disappeared from the offense since Thanksgiving pretty much, but he had a couple of good catches on Sunday. But I think we saw a little Matthew Golden breakout, right? On Sunday. He made that amazing catch down the sideline. He had another big catch on third down. In a game where the Packers
are we back?
In a game where the Packers know they're going to have to score points, there's a little bit more on the offense because the defense, the team lost its best player. Like Micah Parsons is the best player on the Packers. Yeah. So I'm going to set the amount of Matthew Golden targets in this game. I'm going to say over or under 4.5 targets.
Ooh. I am going to take the under, but I was bringing back my old Matthew Golden bet this week. I think he scores the touchdown this week.
Finally
That's what
scores.
I was hoping for.
Okay.
I think he has under 4.5 targets, but he scores a touchdown.
Okay. What about you, Dan?
This is going to be a really windy game. I think
let me check the weather.
I think the last I saw, like 25 to 30 mile an hour winds is what they're
it's not going to be cold, but it is going to be. It says like 15 to 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious how much how deep they're going to try to throw the ball. We've seen Matt LaFleur kind of, not get scared, but gets a little
gun shy.
That's a good word for it. I think Jaden Reed is going to be big in this game. I think it's going to be a lot of kind of small slot stuff. Romeo Doubs will be in a big game. I'll take the under as well. But I do think Camille's on the right track with this could be the game he gets a touchdown finally, just because it's trending.
Mhm.
It's trending in that direction. And also, like, God bless it, we need something good to be happening with
I
this
know that's
team.
right.
I'm going opposite of you guys. I think it's more targets, but no touchdowns.
Ooh.
Okay.
Like, I kind of think they're seeing what he's going to be and should be, right? Which is, we talked about this before. Like, when Romeo's gone, he's going to get the Romeo stuff. He'll be running the intermediate, the middle of the field type of stuff. But I kind of think, like, what we talked about, Matt LaFleur kind of doing his best when his back is up against the wall here.
Mhm.
He's got a weapon that can win and get open. And we saw him do it last week against a really good defense. The Bears defense is nowhere near what Denver's is. And I kind of think we're late in the season. We're making a playoff push. I feel like Matt LaFleur is kind of like, I can get into my bag a little bit with the player we haven't featured all season because we've had the luxury of not having to do that. So I kind of think he gets targeted quite a bit in this game because, like Dan said, it is going to be kind of windy. I feel like you've got two guys between him and Jaden Reed that can, like, kind of win, short, intermediate, and that kind of stuff is going to be important in this game.
Okay. I could definitely see that coming too. So that brings us to our predictions. Now, I know me and Dan both have the same score, but I'm curious if we have the same outcome here. I'm thinking 27-24 Packers. I think it comes down to a field goal in this game.
I also have 27-24. And I'm picking the Bears to win this game.
Man.
Oh, Dan, you know how you were against the Lions and you were like, even in my heart, like, I could see it being a game where they lose, but I can't, but like, you're on principle. I cannot physically fix my lips to say the Lions. That's why I feel about the Bears. I physically can't do it. Even though before the season I said, hey, they could split this year. I'm not going to say it.
Not ready to split, no.
Yeah, I get it. I'll even go one step further. I think they come down and they're trying to kick a game-tying field goal to go to overtime, and Brandon McManus misses it in the wind.
Man, you're Danny Downer for sure on this episode. Damn. We're going to ban special teams now. All right. So I will fully admit, in like the fallout of Sunday, I was like pretty doom and gloom, right? Like I had thought Christian Watson went to the hospital. He's not coming back. Micah Parsons isn't coming back. Evan Williams got hurt on the same play that Micah Parsons got hurt on, and he didn't come back. So I'm like, Packers are still a pretty good team, but I don't see them contending for anything. Then you hear the next day, Watson seems like he'll be fine. Evan Williams is probably only going to miss, a couple weeks, but a couple games or whatever. And I guess we don't know on Zack Tom, but we know it's not serious, right? No structural, which is the Josh Jacobs thing. No structural damage, so it's probably pain management. I kind of I'm back to believing again in the sense that this team was already picked to be a Super Bowl contender without Micah Parsons, right? They already had a top 10 defense. Like, I feel like if they win this game, this kind of like gives them a launch pad.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm picking the Packers in this one because, again, it seems like Watson's going to play. He's such a key for them. And the Bears, we saw what happened. The Bears can't match up with him.
Yeah.
But Musgrave has been better the last few weeks. Like, I think the Packers put up 30 in this one.
Okay.
Because I kind of think that they, I'm leaning in that they're going to use the fallout of the last game as really good motivation. And from Jeff Hafley's press conference, from what Matt said up there this week, like, I think they're really ready to play. And I think Jordan Love is going to have to, he's been great all season, right? We've talked about, he's been an MVP candidate. He's, third or fourth in the odds or whatever. But he has to take his game up just another a step above because the margin for error is lower. He's been doing this. This is his third season. He's got familiarity with all the guys he's throwing to. Like, I kind of think this is kind of what it felt like. And again, I'm not making a one-to-one comparison, but you guys kind of remember when those years, those first couple of Aaron Rodgers years when he was finally starting to get really good, they were winning these 35-point shootouts, right?
Yeah.
And I still think this defense is better than those years that the Packers had back then. So like, I kind of think they're going to have to finally put it all on Jordan Love just down the stretch here, and I think he can do that. So I'm going to say 33-27.
Okay.
Packers.
Okay. So still not a blowout. We give the Bears some respect of like they're going to be. It's going to be.
They're going
a
to score
game.
points. Like, I mean, you figure not having Micah Parsons is good for 2 points a game for the other team or a field goal, right?
Sure.
Because he doesn't make that one highly disruptive play.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to see. We don't have to be waiting all day for Sunday night because we get a Saturday night. Bears, Packers game, 7:20 Central Time. Should be fun. Fellas, where can the people find you outside of Ahead of the Pack?
You can find all three of us on the Monday Pack-A-Day over there on the Pack-A-Day podcast. And then you can find me on Blue Sky and on Twitter. I'm at Ferd Turgeson, FERDTURGESON, and also on Fridays doing Last Call Lambo.
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky at Dano the Mano, and on Wednesdays live on the Lombardi's Bar YouTube channel. But I think we'll be off the next 2 weeks since it's all kind of holiday stuff on the Wednesdays. But yeah, over there is where you can also find me.
Sounds good. And then you guys can find me at Camille Monet, CAMILOE, MONAE on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. Locked on Bucks if you want to be sad with me about the state of the Milwaukee Bucks Monday through Friday, still over there. Mentioned everything else. So yeah, you guys know where to find me at. So as we wrap up here, you guys know what it is. As always, it's Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.